When you work in Google Sheets, you'll occasionally find that you have, well, more spreadsheet than you have paper size. So you may decide at some point that you would like to change the margins to get more on a page, or maybe change the paper size itself, maybe change the orientation. Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library, and let's look at making some changes in Google Sheets page layout. As we look at our example spreadsheet today, we can see that it is recording the bills, whether they are credit cards or say utilities, but the expenses for the month. And then we even in row 13 are recording savings that we've been able to make during that particular month. And it's not finished. It looks like it's just through May, and then we still have the whole rest of the year to do that kind of recording. As you look at row 14, you can see these are monthly totals, and of course only the first 5 months have been filled out. And as we go to column N, we can see that these are year-to-date totals for the particular items as we go down. Now in N14, we have the grand total for all of the expenses and saving during this particular year when it gets finished. Now, if we decide that we need to print this, and maybe it's for a tax person, maybe it's for a loan, maybe it's just to show someone how you created your spreadsheet, maybe you would want to print this. And to do that, we would need to go to the toolbar, and on the left-hand side, the third button is a print button, but notice that it could also be Control P, the keyboard shortcut. Well, I'm going to click on the button. And as I look at this, it is in a landscape orientation, and I can tell that because, well, over here on the right, it tells me that it is landscape. Now, landscape is wider than it is tall. If I were to choose portrait and click on that, wow, now this only goes to July, and as I scroll down, I can see that about half of the year ends up on the second page. It starts with August. Whereas if I go back to landscape, it's wider, and so it goes clear to October. Well, for a lot of spreadsheets, that's a very important choice that you need to make just right off the bat, because some of them are definitely wider than they are tall, like landscape, and some of them are definitely tall and go down vertically, and so you would choose portrait because they're just not as wide. But for us today, we will choose landscape. Now, as I look at this, one of the things that I might want to choose is change the margins. So instead of normal, I might decide to see what narrow looks like. So we'll select narrow. And the margins on the left and the right are narrower, and now I get clear up to November, but that still leaves December and the total on the second page all by themselves. So while that's good, it may not be exactly what I want. Well, while we're here, let's also look at the other margins. So let's click the drop down. And I'm pretty sure wide isn't what we want, but let's click on that. Yeah, no. And so now I can only get to September, and that leaves October, November, December on their second page. Well, you know, that would be a quarter, so depending on the information that you're trying to share and why you're trying to share it, maybe that would work. Well, let's go back, because I think I saw another margin here. Besides wide, let's click down and go to Custom Numbers. Now for custom numbers, this is sort of interesting because it says right now it's 1 inch. I could type, say, 0.25, for example, and press enter, and it will adjust. But I could also take my mouse, I'll do this on the right-hand side, and as I rest my mouse on that dotted or dashed line, you can see how my mouse becomes this two-headed arrow, and I can simply click and drag as far as I want to go. Maybe make that 0.25 or 0.24, close enough. And now I have really narrow margins, and it's even telling me the top is 1 inch, the bottom is 1 inch. I could change that as well if I decide to, again by either typing or clicking and dragging. But unfortunately, I still have on the second page December and the total. So while letter and our custom numbers work, they don't quite work as well as I would like. Well, there is something else that I might decide to do, and that is to go to a different paper size. When I click the drop down for the paper size, I see that I have several choices here. The most likely choice of paper size that you might be able to print at home would be legal, and it's 8.5 by 14. Now, the 8.5 is exactly the same as the letter, so in portrait view, letter is 8.5 inches wide and legal is also 8.5 inches wide, but because we have this in landscape, letter and legal are both 8.5 inches tall, and legal then would be 14 inches wide. That's 3 extra inches that we didn't have before. So let's click on 8.5 by 14 legal. And that fits just very nicely, doesn't it? We might even decide that instead of for our margins having custom numbers, we might be able to say choose narrow and still have it fit on the page and have some default numbers attached to those margins. So definitely legal works well. Just remember you might need to take it to a printer to have it done. Well, as we look at our options here, besides legal, as we click, we also have Tabloid. Now, Tabloid, as we look at it, it is twice the width of letter. So, in fact, as we look at this, we know that Tabloid, instead of 8.5 inches, in this case, tall, would be 11 inches tall. And then the 17 is simply this 8.5 twice. So 17 inches wide instead of the 14 inches from legal. So that means that we have all sorts of extra space with Tabloid. Now, again, this would definitely require a print shop to do this. This is the size of a small newspaper, is really kind of where they get this Tabloid name and size of paper. So when we click it, you can see how it fits so nicely. And we definitely wouldn't need to use narrow margins for that size of paper. Well, let's just go back to where it fits with legal at 8.5 by 14, because that's just a great size for that particular spreadsheet. And you just kind of have to look at how big is my spreadsheet? Is it wide as opposed to tall? Do I need to use landscape as opposed to portrait? There is something else that you can do when you have spreadsheets and you try to fit them on a page, and that is to use scale. So let me show you. If I go to the scale being normal at 100%, yes, we know it fits on legal, but we also know that it really doesn't fit on letter. And again, with letter, it takes us maybe through November, but we still have, and that's with narrow margins, but we still have a second page. However, what I might want to do is this: go to scale, which is just below page orientation, and instead of having it be 100%, we can click the drop down and we can decide if we want to fit to the width, which is what we would want to do, or fit to the height, or fit to page. Now, the fit to page can be kind of dangerous because if you have quite a bit, the columns go out past the paper size and the rows go out quite a ways past the regular size of paper, then when you try to smash that onto a page, it can just become such small font that nobody could read it. But with only 2 columns to kind of smash in on this page, we could fit to the width, and it is still very readable, especially with our narrow margins. And so we could put all of this on our letter page with that fit to width choice and with narrow margins. So as you go through, you're going to always be making some choices here as you work with your paper and what your spreadsheet is. And so we've looked at the print button, but there is another way to print besides the print button and Control P, and that is to go to File and Print, and again that reminder of Control P. When you click on it, it will take you to exactly where we have been working, and you get exactly the same choices as what you get with the toolbar button. To learn even more, be sure to go to mymcpl.org/online learning, where you'll find such great resources as Universal Class, LinkedIn Learning, and Learning Express Library. Be sure to also find us on Facebook and YouTube. On Facebook, you can find us at MCPL 360, and on YouTube, you can find us on our MCPL MO channel, and be sure to look for our MCPL Consumer Technology Resources playlist. We will premiere new videos every Wednesday and Friday at 1 o'clock. All of our videos stay right there all the time, so if you miss one of our premieres, you can come back and find them when it's convenient to you. Hope to see you there.